December 7th, 1941, a date after which the world would never look the same. That morning at the U.S. naval base of Pearl Harbor, disaster struck. Nobody had imagined what was about to happen. Among the sailors was an African-American cook, Doris Miller, who began the day by serving breakfast to officers and collecting laundry. But at 7:57 a.m., the sound of sirens changed everything. When Doris rushed outside, the sky was filled with Japanese bombers. In the blink of an eye, hell had descended on Pearl Harbor. The Japanese had launched a surprise attack that would push America into World War II and eventually lead to the most devastating weapon ever used in history, the atomic bomb. The story begins in 1941. World War II had been raging for 3 years. On one side stood Germany and Italy, on the other, Britain, France, and the Netherlands. America, still scarred by World War I, wanted to remain neutral. But Japan was rapidly expanding. Lacking natural resources, it invaded neighboring regions to fuel its growing empire. Korea, Taiwan, and large parts of China had already fallen under Japanese control. Next, Japan set its eyes on Southeast Asia, the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia. The problem was simple. Malaysia was a British colony. Indonesia belonged to the Netherlands, and the Philippines was under American control. Worse, Japan had Hitler's support. Alarmed, the United States responded in July 1941 by cutting off oil exports to Japan. This was devastating because 80% of Japan's oil came from America. The U.S. offered a condition: withdraw from China and oil supplies would resume. But Japan refused. Instead, it secretly planned to seize Indonesia's oil fields. To do that, however, Japan needed to neutralize America's Pacific Fleet. Their solution was a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. By late 1941, Japan had prepared its strike force: 6 aircraft carriers, 2 battleships, 30 destroyers, 39 submarines, and more than 400 bomber aircraft. On the morning of December 7th, at exactly 7:57 a.m., over 350 Japanese planes descended on Pearl Harbor. The first wave unleashed relentless fire for 45 minutes. Then, just as Americans thought it was over, a second wave arrived, pounding the base for another 30 minutes. In total, 20 vessels were destroyed, including 8 battleships. Over 300 American aircraft were ruined. Thousands were killed or injured. Amid the chaos, one man's courage stood out. Doris Miller, the African-American cook we met earlier, dragged wounded officers to safety. Then, without training, he manned an anti-aircraft gun and shot down at least 6 Japanese planes. For his bravery, Doris Miller was awarded the Navy Cross, America's second-highest military honor. The attack had achieved its goal. America was now in the war. The very next day, the United States declared war on Japan. For months, America rebuilt its navy. By April 1942, it was ready to retaliate. In the famous Doolittle raid, American bombers struck Tokyo. Though militarily limited, the raid sent a clear message: America was fighting back. The war between Japan and the United States raged for 4 long years. Battle after battle weakened Japan, but its leaders refused to surrender. Finally, in August 1945, America played its last card. On August 6th, at 8 a.m., a US B-29 bomber dropped a single weapon over the city of Hiroshima. The bomb, nicknamed Little Boy, exploded seconds later, unleashing a fireball hotter than the surface of the sun. In an instant, 80% of the city was destroyed. Tens of thousands died, and countless others suffered from burns and radiation. But Japan still did not surrender. 3 days later, on August 9th, America dropped a second bomb, Fat Man, on the city of Nagasaki. The devastation was unimaginable. Entire neighborhoods vanished in seconds. At last, Japan's leaders were forced to accept defeat. World War II was over. The attack on Pearl Harbor had dragged America into the deadliest war in human history. 4 years later, the atomic bomb ended it, but at a horrific cost. From the bravery of Doris Miller at Pearl Harbor to the fiery skies over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This chapter of history reminds us of the destructive power of war and the price humanity pays when nations collide.